We live in a society. Who do you think screamed the loudest? The girl or the boy? Welcome back to Big Mouth and welcome to the dceu Daily. Remember, you can follow me on Twitter and tag me on Twitter and speak to me on Twitter at Movies TV Mag. Yes, it's war. Zack Snyder and David Ayer wage war on WB Pictures as Zack Snyder goes against WB's rules and posts an extended sequence that he wasn't allowed to put in Zack Snyder's Justice League Snyder Cut. And it was that very piece of dialogue. It was the "We live in a society" dialogue and that whole thing about who screamed the loudest, the girl or the boy. Amazing to actually see it. It should have been in the actual film. It wasn't because, again, for some reason, beyond anyone with any sanity, WB Pictures wouldn't allow it. Now, question for you. Do we think that Zack Snyder should drop the sequence with Green Lantern and John Jones in it? I would say absolutely yes. I absolutely would. Will it happen? Who knows? I don't think Zack's against it. And I think he reacted to a fan quite favourably. So who knows? So yesterday we trended, Restore the Snyderverse trended by over 100,000 tweets. So we did it again. And I think there's another event later today. Is it Release the Haircut? I don't know. And talking of Release the Haircut, David Ayer posted a picture of Joker laying on the floor, laughing. If you remember that one, is he laughing? I'm not sure. But anyway, it is awesome. Listen, I've said it before and I'll say it again. I've been watching TV and movies since I was a small boy and, venturing my opinions to these things, even as a young man. I have never seen a more insane situation than the Release the Snyder Cut, Restore the Snyderverse, Release the Ayer Cut situation. And now I'm hearing that David Ayer cut more POC characters from Godzilla versus Kong. Wow, how racist are these people? It's unbelievable. How far will this go? And you know what? I think it's gone beyond now. Us just saying, well, maybe the Snyderverse can have a little corner over at HBO Max. I think we can fight for more. I think when a movement gets 1.5 million tweets, more than Avengers Endgame, and 100k tweets yesterday, and more public figures saying restore the Snyderverse. Femi, he's a really famous guy. He's bigging up Ray Fisher, saying it's a great performance and that the Snyderverse should be restored. Awesome. And there's more and more blue ticks coming out. Only the other day, Subway were back at it, hashtagging restore the Snyderverse. I think we are going to restore the Snyderverse, but I think that Zack should be running the central universe. We're really in an insane time because when they first announced this multiverse strategy, if you remember back, I was very, very excited about it because, to think about an interconnected multiverse universe, where everything is canon from the past, present and future, that's awesome. And I was very excited about Andy Muschietti doing Flashpoint. But I must say I'm really, really concerned now because when a studio says they want Joss Whedon's Justice League to be canon to the central universe of the DC Extended Universe, I think we should all be concerned. Now, I understand it's very, very complicated. If you watch Zack Snyder's Justice League Snyder Cut, you'll see that the Atlantis stuff and those characters are very different to James Wan's 2018 movie. Very different. Mira has got a very posh English accent. Voko has got long hair. The actual sequences underwater are very, very different to James Wan's. And so we discussed this yesterday. But something has to happen here. Because Warner Brothers Pictures are not fit for purpose. And I know it's difficult to take down Warner Brothers Pictures because Warner Brothers Pictures has been the lead of Warner Brothers for over, 6-7 decades, right? They were a proud studio and a studio that the consumer could be proud of as well as the company, but not anymore. When you keep on cutting POC characters, when you cut to actors and characters of colour, like John Stewart, the Green Lantern, and you wanted to cut J'onn J'onzz as well, and if it wasn't for the director, Zack Snyder, putting up a fight, that would have actually happened. And so this is now becoming a very, very serious situation where Warner Media has to step in and just break down Toby Emmerich and his Warner Brothers Pictures group. They have to intermingle it with Warner Media. Instead of it being Warner Brothers Pictures, everything is Warner Media. You know, Toby Emmerich has to go. It was staggering to me after Warner Media took over that Ann Sarnoff gave, Toby Emmerich this huge role. And when I was mistaken in thinking that Ann Sarnoff was actually the CEO of Warner Media, that worried me. But what's even more worrying, that Jason Kilar and Warner Media allowed this to happen. I've already explained to you what the problem is. Toby Emmerich went and got the J.J. Abrams deal, which is very valuable to Warner Media. And now it's kind of checkmate, if you like. It's very difficult because if you take down Emmerich, you could lose the J.J. Abrams deal. As I say, very profitable and lucrative for Warner Media. And so that's important to understand. But sometimes in life, there's more important things than money. And if Abrams goes, Abrams goes. It's as simple as that. But the whole structure of Warner Media and WB Pictures has to change because we can't carry on like this. Because I think the Warner Brothers Pictures with this their multiverse strategy, as exciting as it sounds, and I was one of the first to say, wow, this is awesome, when I thought there were plans for Zack to have his corner on HBO Max. I just don't think it's feasible. You've got to look at it this way. How many people at Warner Brothers Pictures and running these DC movies have any experience or knowledge of DC? Now, James Gunn has great knowledge and love for both Marvel and DC. That's great. We're getting a Suicide Squad movie. He's taking it from John Ostrander's graphic novels. He knows what he's doing. The trailers look great. I'm excited for what James Gunn's got to do, what he's doing with Suicide Squad and with Peacemaker as well. But it goes beyond that, doesn't it now? Because you could say James Wan is a good guy and has knowledge and made a great Aquaman movie. David F. Sandberg, surprisingly, because he's got very little experience in making movies, if you think about it, a really small CV, made a great Aquaman movie. I don't agree what he did with Superman. I think it was, it didn't work for me. It didn't work for me. It didn't look like Henry Cavill even. It just looked lame, if you ask me. But we can forgive David for that. The rest of the movie was really, really good. But there is a lack of experience and love and knowledge for DC Comics in the plan for this central universe. Now, we know that Jim Lee has been at DC Comics. He's a great artist, a great comic book artist. There's no question about that. But Walter Hamada, who is the lead of he's the DC Films president after all, has no experience, love, or knowledge for DC Comics. That's very serious, isn't it? Very serious indeed. So we've got a president of DC Films, really, who's not, and I hate this Kevin Feige thing, but Feige has a love and experience with Marvel. He's been involved with the production of Marvel films since Raimi's movies, Spider-Man movies, since Bryan Singer's X-Men. He's always been there, right? And you could argue that Geoff Johns had always been there before. But we gave Geoff Johns a chance and he fucked it up, right? So we need someone who has a love and a knowledge for DC Comics, who's a great director and can put a story together. And the only person out of anyone who has got these credentials is Mr. Zack Snyder. It's as simple as that. But they don't like Snyder because he's made them look stupid. So they're digging their heels in. And it seems to me that Jason Kilar at Warner Media has his hands tied. And that is very concerning to me. And as I say, it's all about the J.J. Abrams deal. There is a civil war between Warner Media and Warner Brothers Pictures. But, you know, someone at Warner Media, it has to be John Stankey or Jason Kilar, I don't care. He's going to have to stand up and say, we don't care about this J.J. Abrams deal. These people are beyond toxic, and they are. Especially if Ann Sarnoff's variety hit piece was done without Jason Kilar's, John Stankey's permission. that is a very, very serious offence. You know, it's really funny when these people get nervous. They always play the toxic fandom card. Let me ask you, how many times has that actually worked? How many times did that stop the fandom menace? How many times has it stopped the release of Snyder Cut, restore the Snyderverse, release the Air Cut movement? Not once, but still, they keep on playing the toxic fandom card. It doesn't work anymore. My God, people that weren't interested in Snyder's universe are now interested. This is a universal situation, right? Zack Snyder should be running it. And I think so many fans of our movement have made a great suggestion. You know, Deborah Snyder could be president of DC Films and Zack could be making the films himself, focusing on that. I think that would be amazing. It would work. You know, Deb is a great leader. She's got good history with working with studios, advertising. You know, she's a really clever, intelligent woman, right? And so I think this is what we've got to head to now because we're in trouble. As a DC fan, we have to admit it, that these people who are guiding the central universe don't have a clue apart from Jim Lee. And no disrespect to Mr. DC, Jim Lee, but at the end of the day, Jim, you're an artist. Yes, you know about these characters, but do you know how to put a story together? Do you have ideas about DC stories, or are you just an artist? I think you're just an artist. I think you're Uncle Jim, just to keep things calm, just for fans to say, oh, it's Jim Lee. He's in charge of everything DC now. Everything's going to be okay. They've literally put him in charge of everything DC, while Walter Hamada is still the president of DC Films. Now, Walter Hamada is team Toby Emmerich, team Jeff Johns. We know that, right? That is where the problem lays, right? They're the ones who put pressure on him to tell Ray Fisher to throw Joss Whedon under the bus. So I'm not saying that Walter Hamada is a toxic individual, but he's got to do what the toxic individuals want him to do. And that lies the problem. Because Kevin Feige doesn't have to do what the heads of Disney tell him to do. Obviously, there's discussions and there's fallout sometimes, right? And I totally understand that. But Kevin Feige has an idea on how to create stories, how to create story arcs, and how to shape the MCU. And he's been doing a great job from the very beginning at it. Great experience. He's not new to this game. He's very focused. And what I love about Kevin Feige, actually, he's ruthless. Ruthless. Some of the stuff he's had to do is ruthless. Now, the Ed Norton situation, I don't agree with Kevin Feige with what happened with Ed Norton. I thought Ed Norton had some great ideas and was a great Bruce Banner. And his Incredible Hulk movie was awesome. And he's a much better Bruce Banner than the guy they're using now, whose name escapes me, right? Mark Ruffalo, that's his name, right? I don't like Professor Hulk. I think that's despicable what Kevin Feige did. But he's a man who's ruthless and he does what he wants to do. And ultimately what he wants to do works out and makes the company money. That's something important to remember. We have a president of DC Films with no love or kind of seems any great knowledge of DC Comics. And as I say, Jim Lee is just a figurehead. That's all. I want you to understand that Jim Lee is just a figurehead, right? And I'm quite sure he was very positive towards the Snyder Cut. He was supportive towards that. But, you know, we're in a situation now where things have to change. We have to get serious. Whether you like Snyder or you don't like Snyder, it's not about that anymore. He's the only one who has a knowledge and love and a skill how to put a universe together. We can see now from Man of Steel, Batman vs. Superman, Dawn of Justice, and Zack Snyder's Justice League Snyder Cut that a story and an arc was forming. He knows what he's doing. And people may have been kind of doubting him, right? During Man of Steel and BVS. But now they've seen his Justice League movie, they understand and they're going back to watch those films and they get it now. It proves that Zack absolutely knows what he's doing. And that's the key thing here. So, we're in a even if you're just a DC fan and not a Snyder fan and you're not fighting to restore the Snyderverse, you must see that these people are incompetent. You must understand that they commissioned Joss Whedon to come in, pressuring him to have the same release date as Zack Snyder. and forcing him to put together a 2-hour movie of smiles and bright lights, right? You must understand they're incompetent, right? Can we really trust these people? As I say, the multiverse strategy is an exciting thing. And if someone like Fade was in charge of it, or someone with some kind of knowledge, I mean, we even know that Snyder threw in the multiverse line for Steppenwolf to say in his Justice League movie. So maybe even he had plans to kind of deal with the multiverse as well, you know, further down the road. But these people are so incompetent, and the racism of the cutting out of POC characters, as we've seen in Godzilla versus Kong, and in Zack's original movie, they cut out POC characters. That's not just me speaking out of turn. These are facts, right? And Zack keeps on exposing these people. Zack's not backing down. He's telling us that they wanted to cut John Jones and John Stewart. It's all there. He's not backing down. He's not going to play nice. Why should he? Right? They can talk about toxic fandom until they're blue in the face. It's not going to make a hill of beans of difference now. We, as part of this fandom and as part of this movement, must keep on doing what we're doing, creating these huge events. Yesterday's event wasn't even planned, and we've got over 100k tweets. So that tells you something about this fandom and this movement. This fandom and this movement is more organised than Warner Media and Warner Brothers Pictures put together right now, right? And someone at Warner Media has to stand up to be counted and say, enough is enough. Zack Snyder has made a really successful Justice League movie. Everyone wants to restore the Snyderverse, or almost everyone. I see the tweets all the time. Very important people are saying this. A lot more knowledgeable people within the industry than I am saying this. It's time. You can't fight this anymore, Jason, right? This has to happen. I don't know if you're a supporter or not, but it makes sense to your bottom line at Warner Media. If you allow these people to do this multiverse strategy with their lack of knowledge of DC, you've allowed Christina Hodgson to write a Flash movie. What knowledge or love or experience of DC has Christina Hodgson got? Oh, I know. She wrote the Birds of Prey movie. Well, that's a good reason to let her do this. I want you to think about this for a minute. She wrote the Flashpoint movie. You should be extremely worried. Now, Jim Lee's told us he loves her script and it's amazing. Well, Jim would say that and Walter would say that, wouldn't they? And the only time we're going to be able to judge her script is when we see the movie. It is too late by then, right? We can't afford another Justice League. This cannot be a mess, right? If they think they can throw in cameo after cameo after cameo, which originally really excited me, and Keaton's appearance is exciting, right? But imagine if Keaton doesn't like the script. He said he's got to read the script first. That's interesting as well. If he pulls out of this, it's an absolute mess. Why did they really shelve Ava DuVernay's and Tom King's New Gods? Why did they shelve James Wan's project as well? All of a sudden, it's weird, and the reasoning is stupid. Oh, because we didn't want them to wait in development hell. Well, it hasn't worried you in the past, has it, Toby? Has it, Walter? If you were confident in those projects would have gone forward. You would have squeezed them in somewhere. We all know that. So this is a very incompetent team of people and a very toxic team of people, right? That's not a good combination, is it? So someone somewhere has to do something. And we're only fans. We can only do so much. We can trend the hashtags, which is good. It's a really powerful thing to do, and I suggest we keep on doing that. But someone at the damn company has to be revolutionary here. Jason Keeler, right, broke the release window, and it's working out pretty well. He's a smart guy. He's got great experience in streaming. He did great at Hulu. But you need more than that. That will only get you so far. You need, he's a very nicey, smiley, polite man. He makes it, his marketing on Twitter's great, taking pictures of Warner Brothers Burbank and all of that, and pictures of Godzilla versus Kong, and it's great. He seems like a big Warner Brothers fan, And that's great, so am I. And this is why, Jason, you and us have to save this studio together, because it's got a grand, iconic history, and it deserves better in its film division than Ann Sarnoff and Toby Emmerich, right? And Walter Hamada leading its DC division. Jesus Christ, the history of DC live action is as iconic as Warner Brothers itself. Jesus Christ, Superman the movie, Superman 2, Smallville. These are proud things that this studio accomplished in the past, right? What have we had since Toby's been at Warner Brothers Pictures, right? Justice League, right? Think about that. I mean, it's amazing, really, that Zack came out the other week and said Aquaman's a forgettable movie, and they can make 100 of them, he said, and I want them to because Jason Momoa is my friend, and it's great. But no one's talking about Aquaman, and that's a good point. But it did make over $1 billion at the box office, which puts them under pressure for the sequel, of course. So what we have to do is ask the question, those two projects that were shelved, why were they shelved? Were they shelved because they're going to give Zack a role? I don't know. Are they going to shelve more of these projects? It's very interesting. It's a bit of a mess, isn't it? If we're really honest, right? We've got us fighting for Zack to come back, but say if we're successful and Zack comes back, what happens to Flashpoint? What happens to Supergirl? What even happens to the Batman? You can't just shelve Matt Reeves' movie. You just can't do it. It's going to be a great movie. It's Matt Reeves, for fuck's sake. No one should want that to happen, right? So you'd have to have Zack and Matt work together at some point. But I think that's easily done. And Matt can have his kind of Earth too. And that's fine, by the way. That's not a problem. And Zack, because Zack's not a toxic individual. He and Matt are friends and they could work together. There's no question about that. And that's not an issue. The bigger issue is this central DCEU universe that Jim Lee, Walter Hamada, and what's his name? God, what's his name? I'm terrible with names, right? Walter Hamada, that's his name, right? You know, it's this central universe that's really problematic right now. And so I'm just looking as a fan, because that's all I can do. I have no role at Warner Brothers. I can only speak as a commentator, right? And someone who's been watching this content and this stuff for all my life. The first thing I ever saw as a child was Superman the movie. So emotionally, I'm invested. And passionately, I'm invested. But I don't have any authority here. You don't, and I don't. And that's the issue. So basically, even the fans can see there's an oncoming car crash with this central universe and this multiverse strategy, which is a great idea they've pulled out their backsides. But here's the thing. Just like they didn't know how to execute Justice League, they don't know how to execute this awesome idea of a multiverse strategy. And it is an excellent idea. But there are loads of excellent ideas that never get done out there. It's an excellent idea, but they can't execute this multiverse strategy. They're going to make a mess of it. Because who's working on this strategy, right? I mean, and it's weird because we talk about James Wan, we talk about David F. Sandberg, we talk about all these different directors, right? But are they all sitting around the table so they have a connective discussion? Well, no. David F. Sandberg has said they don't talk that much. If they want him to do something or not to do something, they'll talk to him. This is not how a connective universe works. So already I'm worried about that. You know, at the MCU, these people work together. James Gunn was involved with Infinity War and Endgame because his characters were involved hugely in those films. They sit round the table. James Gunn was on the fucking set, for fuck's sake, right? You know, David F. Sandberg isn't round anyone's set, right, when his characters are going to cross over. None of it makes sense. Is Shazam going to be in Flashpoint? How many crossovers are you going to have? I just don't believe that the people working on Flashpoint have got the experience to pull this off. And I love the Machetes. I love Andy and his sister, and they're very excited about what they're doing. And Andy's an excellent director, and there's no question about that. I'm not saying he can't make the movie. The problem is, why isn't he writing the movie as well? Right, because they don't trust him. So they trust Christina Hodson, who wrote a disappointing movie the last time. Birds of Prey, who's going with Margot Robbie, Miss Feminist herself, over to Disney to do a Pirates of the Caribbean reboot. You trust her? You trust her to write a Flash movie? None of this makes sense, right? And you can call me a toxic fan. You can call us toxic fans as much as you want. But, Mr. Keeler, you are leading a car crash that you're not even leading. You have no control, Jason, in what's actually going on right now and right here. That's the truth. But this is a bigger issue for you, Jason, and I know you don't watch this, so I don't know why I'm talking to you or addressing you, but I have to, right? It's my style. If this fails, and if this is the car crash we all think it is, your job is on the chopping block, my friend. It's better to act now. It's better to destroy Warner Brothers Pictures and bring it in, unify it with the rest of Warner Media, right? And put one of your own people in charge while putting Deborah Snyder as president of DC Films while Zack Snyder is leading the narrative for the films. And if there has to be some kind of compromise with your central universe to kind of guide this car crash together, that's fair enough. I think there may have to be some postponements if you bring Zack on. Now, I don't know if that's a realistic kind of situation, but if you do bring Zack on, I think there will have to be some postponements. It's another car crash. But better to postpone the production of some movies than carry on with this. You've got Black Adam. Black Adam, right, and Shazam are supposed to be fighting in Shazam 3. Do you think the director, is it Sierra, right, and David F. Sandberg are in communication? No! We've been told, no, there is no communication between the production of Shazam and the production of Black Adam. There's no connection. They're not really talking to each other. We've already been told that by the people making Black Adam and David F. Sandberg himself. They're not even on the same fucking page. How can this work? How is this possible? This is a mess. With Zack Snyder, he's doing everything. He's working with his people, his team. He has a vision. He makes great movies. They look good. They feel good. They're compelling. They're everything the consumer should want to happen. And everyone is saying this now. Everyone. We want, yeah, I've got my issues with Zack Snyder, people are saying, but rather him who knows what he's doing, who's just giving us this operatic comic book movie, than these fuckwits who are responsible for what's going on now. And that's not me being disrespectful to the director of Black Adam, David F. Sandberg or James Wan. Very talented people, and Andy Muschietti. I like all these directors, right? And I hope there'll be a role for them. But they're from New Line Cinema, and they're there to make cheap movies. That's why they're there. That's the experience. This is why this is why Walter Hamada was put in that position, because he can make cheap movies. Apart from Aquaman, the other movies that have been made under the tutelage of Walter Hamada have been cheap, budgeted movies, right? Shazam, Joker movie, Birds of Prey, all cheaply made movies, right? And if Shazam wasn't made as cheap as it was, it would have been a flop. And I've defended the box office and I've defended that film. But that film didn't make a lot of money. So if they actually spent money on it, well, maybe if they spent a bit more money on it and was more ambitious with it, maybe it would have made more money. But Shazam's a grade Z character. And it's difficult. But people like the film. Critics like the film, and families, parents and children like the film. My nephews and nieces like the film, right? But here's the thing. If you're making a Shazam and a Black Adam universe, and the creative on Black Adam and the creative of Shazam and not talking, there's no real communication here. How can we be confident in what's going on? And that is just the tip of the iceberg, my friends. What about Henry Cavill? What's going on with Henry Cavill, right? Nobody knows. Yesterday, he completed production on The Witcher Season 2. And you know what I wrote on Twitter? I'm happy for him and everything. But, and it's great for Witcher fans that Henry's involved in that project because he's a great guy and he's a nerd and he's a geek and he loves fantasy. But it's so hurtful for any Superman fan. And I finished my tweet by saying, this is one Superman fan who's heartbroken, whose heart is breaking, right? And I think I speak for all of us. Henry Cavill is the modern day Superman. He is perfect, right? For me, right, we can unify and say that Christopher Reeve, Tom Welling, and Henry Cavill are amazing as that character. And Brandon Routh did a solid job in Superman Returns, and when he was in Crisis, he's good, right? But there's debate over him. I don't think there can be any debate around Christopher Reeve, Tom Welling, and Henry Cavill. Henry Cavill is perfect to play Superman, right? But he's not getting any younger, right? We have wasted so many years. Since 2017, when he was in Justice League, he hasn't played Superman, apart from when we saw him in the Snyder Cut, which is, sequences he shot back in 2016, 2015. Nobody knows what's going on with Henry Cavill's Superman. And Warner Brothers Pictures, I'd like to ask you something. Do you know? Do you know what's going on? Because we don't. Do you? Do you have a plan? When the Hollywood Reporter put out that article and said you were arresting Superman back in 2018, we haven't heard anything since, apart from Henry saying the cake's still in the closet. That was 2018, 2019, whenever it was, right? That was a couple of years ago. And we've heard rumours of cameos for Henry, but nothing has officially been done. And also with these Warner Brothers Pictures fuckwits, they pick and choose when they speak through Access Media and when they make an announcement themselves. So the other day, when they shelved Ava DuVernay's and Tom King's New Gods and James Wan's Trench Project, they made a public official announcement. Other times, they make announcements via the Hollywood Reporter and Variety. It's like their mouthpiece, right? There's inconsistency. The article, the Superman, the resting Superman article, that was via the Hollywood Reporter. Nobody at Warner Brothers Pictures officially spoke, apart from all sources, right? Boris Kit or Boris Kite, or however you say the lad's name, is like their spokesperson. It is ridiculous. Warner Brothers Pictures needs to be broken up. And it needs to be broken up immediately, right? The reaction to the Snyder Cut is huge. You can't just avoid this situation and say, no, we're done with Zack, that's it. We'll let him do his trilogy, even though it was a 5-movie arc, and we're not doing anything. You can't bury your head in the sand, Jake. You can't start again. You can't bury your head in the sand, Jason. This is serious. These people are incompetent. They're about to go to work on the key project that will burn down the Snyderverse, Flashpoint. Surely, Jason, when you saw the reaction or when you saw the Snyder Cut yourself, you must have thought, hang on a minute, we can't do this. This is a disaster. But at least when you saw the reaction, the universal reaction of people at least saying, at the very least, it was better than Justice League, which your central division of movie distribution, Warner Brothers Pictures, have actually said they want canon. They want Justice League to be canon rather than this epic film everybody loves. Not one person who saw the Snyder Cut said Justice League was better. I haven't seen anyone or heard or read anyone at least say that, whatever issues they've got with the Snyder Cut, right? You know Snyder's talented. We are weeks away where he starts promoting the zombie flick on Netflix, right? Army of the Dead. You need to make this decision beforehand. I don't want us going into that and the hype of Army of the Dead and the conversation about restoring the Snyderverse goes quiet. We can't do that because I'll support Zack in whatever he does, but I don't give a shit. I don't give a shit about Army of the Dead. I'll watch it and I'll support Zack and I'll put some positive tweets out, but that isn't my focus. My focus is in restoring the DC Snyderverse. That's what's important to me. So I'm being very, very honest here. We are in an urgent, serious situation here. And Warner Media and AT&T need to stand up to be counted and put a stop to Warner Brothers Pictures immediately, no matter what they think they've got over them. It doesn't matter. DC is the most important IP you have. And you fucked it up from day one. From day one. Not because I don't like Man of Steel, because I do. Not because I don't like BVS, because I do. Not because I don't like the Snyder Cut, because I do. Right? You allowed Christopher Nolan to say, here's Zack. You didn't want Zack, but you wanted to keep in his good graces, so you went along with it. Even though you knew the way Zack makes his movies, right? But all of a sudden, because of us, the fans, not because of you, Warner Brothers Pictures, we pushed you into this, right? Maybe that makes us toxic, maybe it doesn't, I don't know. But all of a sudden, people are believers of the Snyderverse. You have an opportunity here, right? Put this guy Snyder involved. Put him in. Have his wife, Deborah, be the president of DC Films. Get these toxic entities out of Warner Brothers Pictures and DC Films. And it has to be done immediately. I'm telling you, if you do not do this, Mr. Keelar or Mr. Stanky, right, it's going to go wrong. It's a car crash waiting to happen. You mustn't allow them to go and start shooting Flashpoint. But of course you will. And that's the movie where they burn the Snyderverse down and probably kill off Batfleck. You can't allow it to happen. Because if you do, there's no going back. If this gets fucked up, your DC cinematic universe is fucked. Is that what you're waiting for, Jason? For it to be a car crash? Then you can bring Zack in? You can't do that. You can't do that. This has to be done now. Because if you don't, Jason, it's your head on the chopping block. Well, Scott Edwards has sent me this link for an article from Screen Rant at Movies TV Mad. I know you have mixed feelings on Supergirl and Arrowverse. I have. But can you cover this article for the DCEU? So let's do this. Let's click onto it and let's give it a read just for Scott. Come on, Internet. Come on. Right, here we are. How Supergirl set up a new member of the Arrowverse's Justice League. So this is by Donna Chromians from Screen Rant. Supergirl's Alex Danvers deserves to become part of the Arrowverse's Justice League, and Jon Jones gave her that honour in the Season 6 premiere. Really, Scott, you're going to make me read this? Okay, then. Within the Arrowverse are heroes with deep, rich comic book histories, and in Supergirl's final season premiere, another hero is added to their ranks. Having earned a place alongside these icons, a fearless warrior always ready to jump into action, Alex Danvers has at long last been bestowed with her own superhero name after Jon Jones dubbed her the Sentinel. The Sentinel, formally recognising Alex's rightful place among the Arrowverse's greatest heroes. You're joking, right? Is this some kind of April Fool's thing from a couple of days ago? One of the biggest highlights of Crisis on Infinite Earths was the Arrowverse introducing their version of Justice League. The conclusion of the crossover saw the surviving heroes gather to pay tribute to the fallen Oliver Queen, meeting in the future Hall of Justice and sitting at a round table with heroes. Plans for the future CW crossovers to focus on the newly formed Justice League were derailed by the COVID pandemic and the subsequent losses of Supergirl and Black Lightning when their respective shows announced final seasons. However, those exits opened the door for more heroes to be added to the CW Justice League roster. And who has done more to earn that honour than Supergirl's Alex Danvers? 1 billion people? Oh, look, I love Shyla Lee. I think she's great. Lots of time for her. She was great in Grey's Anatomy. But this role is just so contrived. Look, honestly, this is ridiculous. How can you give her a superhero name? Well, it's ridiculous. Just because, listen, and this is not me being, an ist or an ism. And if you think that's what I'm doing, good luck to you. But the only reason she's being forced in here is because she's an LGBTQ plus woman. That's it. That's the truth. Prior to the Arrowverse's Supergirl, the character of Alex Danvers did not exist in DC comic lore. No. She was a character created specifically for the television show to be Supergirl's supportive sister. But she quickly demonstrated that she was much more than a sidekick, did she? A scientist and a secret DEO agent, Alex threw herself headfirst into danger time and again to protect Supergirl and the people of Earth, including aliens. Her tenacity, courage, wisdom, and her heart are all the qualities of a great superhero, making it a welcome development that after 5 seasons, Alex has her own superhero persona of Sentinel. I think her hair's the funniest. It's got shorter. If you look at season 1, every time that we've got a new season, her hair gets shorter and shorter. I think there's a little stereotype situation going on here. And this is how tone deaf these people are. Fighting beside her sister, Alex Danvers has fiercely faced intergalactic invasions, Kryptonian witches, alternate universe Nazis, the Anti-Monitor, and even government bureaucrats. Her tenacity is unmatched. This is a joke. To protect others, she's jumped off skyscrapers, shooting at invaders, mid-leap flown an aged Kryptonian pod into space, leaped from rooftop to rooftop in pursuit of an attacker, gone head-to-head with powerful world killers, Rain, Purity and Pestilence, and even faced off with her own red kryptonite. Affected superpowered sister without hesitation. One question about all of this. You're putting all this here to prove that she should be a superhero with her own superhero alias. I'm asking, how the fuck is this ordinary human being still alive after all of that? She's done all these heroic acts armed with nothing more than her training, her courage and her mind. Like more established Justice League members, White Canary and Batwoman, she doesn't have superpowers to rely on, yet she's a fierce force to be reckoned with. You notice the other members she's mentioned are not men and female. There's an agenda in this article, isn't there? Alex further proved herself deserving of being a Justice League member by holding her own in multiple Arrowverse crossovers. In Crisis on Earth X, she was ready to take on the entire Nazi army, which is ridiculous, by the way, how she's still alive, to find and rescue her sister who had been captured. She teamed up with an impressed Legends of Tomorrow's assassin turned time ship captain Sarah Lance, a dynamic partnership that ever since has had fans rooting for them to work together again. Alex was also an integral part of the team involved in the final takedown battle with the Anti-Monitor in Crisis. In a milestone moment for her hero's journey, Alex Danvers' mentor, father figure, and now partner in protecting National City, J'onn J'onzz, gives Alex her official superhero name. In the Supergirl Season 6 premiere, J'onn has often declared Alex is every bit as much of a hero as her Kryptonian sister, when he placed her new symbol alongside the call buttons of the Arrowverse, Justice League, and its allies. He was rightfully recognising her place among significant DC heroes. Not all heroes wear capes, and Alex Danvers is truly a superhero. Sorry, let's get your name right. Donna Chromians. Right, Donna, I've never seen such an article full of bullshit. You haven't offered one reason why this woman should be seen as a superhero, right? She's done a lot of heroic things, but they're all unplausible. That's the problem. They're unplausible. Nothing's really earned. And as I've already said, why isn't she dead after doing all these things? Seeing she's just an ordinary human. That's the problem. And she's not like Batwoman who's got a costume on. And Batwoman's costume, the only thing that can hurt that, as we know, is kryptonite, right? So the whole thing's unplausible, and it's just what these shows do, because it's the crazy people working on these shows. So what they want to do is bring down the men, uplift the women, and let's just say minority characters. But that's not a balance. Everyone should be equal, right? Isn't that what we want? But no, what you people do is quite toxic. But there is no logic to her actually being a superhero or having a superhero name. All this is about is politics. Alt-left politics. Basically, the fans still saw her as a hero without you having to make this kind of contrived point. She's a hero. She's a superhero. She deserves it, right? Or else. No, she doesn't deserve it. She was heroic enough as it is. She didn't need a stamp saying she's a superhero now. And that is my opinion. So Scott Edwards speaks about the article and says, at Movies TV Man, in a follow-up to the article, I totally think Supergirl and Black Lightning will return for more crossovers, despite the fact that their shows are ending. These characters need to live on in the DC TV universe for years to come. I must say, Scott, I was terribly shocked about Black Lightning being cancelled. I don't know if it's a ratings issue, because the cast and the writing is absolutely spot on. It's literally the perfect superhero show. So that is bad. That's been cancelled. And again, these studios and these networks talking about wanting to represent POC characters and then axing one with a whole cast of POC characters in it shows you what liars. And really, let's put it this way, they do not care about POC characters. Otherwise, they won't be cancelling a show like Black Lightning. Supergirl, they destroyed Supergirl. There was so much untapped potential in that show, and they didn't tap any of its potential. Now, what is the future? What's in store for Supergirl's and Black Lightning's future? That's a tough one, Scott. In the past, I would have said to you, there's a big future. Listen, I really don't know right now what their thinking is. They've already cast a brand new Supergirl for the movie universe. I did assume that Melissa Benoist's Supergirl would play a part in Flashpoint, and she may get kind of a little bit of a cameo. I expect so many to get cameos in that movie. But apart from that, I don't know what their future holds. Scott goes on. At Movies TV Man, thanks so much for answering my question. My questions for your next DCEU Daily are the Batman and television series Stargirl set in the same Earth, since they are both technically set on Earth 2. And who do you think the main villain of the Flash movie is? Walter Hamada, joking. Toby Emmerich, joking again. Right, so let's start, right? So listen, Scott, what I can kind of put to bed right now is that Stargirl and the Batman are not in the same Earth too. So let me just try and explain it to you. And I think people are purposely putting two and two together and getting five. The situation is, in the movie universe, in the DC Extended Universe, yes, the Batman is in a second Earth, right? So it doesn't interfere with the DCEU. It's another Earth. Who knows if that... Look, basically with Flashpoint, right? These multiverses have got to kind of combine together, and ultimately the Earth 2 universe has to clash with the Earth 1 universe, or they need to meet up, and, these characters should be in the same movies and scenes and sequences, right? It would make sense. But yeah, Robert Pattinson's The Batman is in Earth 2. Now, Stargirl is in Earth 2 in Arrowverse, not in the DCEU. That's very important to understand. Now, this is what a clusterfuck that's going on at Warner Brothers TV and Warner Brothers Pictures. You would think, Scott, if they say Earth 2, then they're both in the same universe. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they are in the same universe. But how I understand it, Scott, is this. That, in fact, it's two separate Earth 2s, which makes it even more confusing for the normies. There's an Arrowverse Earth 2 and there's a DCEU Earth 2. Because I can't imagine for a minute that Matt Reeves would allow anyone else's creations or characters that they've developed to be in his Earth. I expect Matt to develop his own stuff for that Earth. That's the beauty of the Batman being on a different Earth. So no, I don't believe that the Earth 2 in the DCEU and the Earth 2 of Arrowverse are the same thing. Now, after Flashpoint, that of course could change. This is the problem here. When Barry creates this new universe by saving his mother, goes back and tries to fix it, certain things won't be fixed. And these are the issues. This is where it gets a bit messy. The multiverse strategy is ambitious, but ambition isn't enough. You've got to be able to execute these things, and we will see if they can do it or not. I think they're heading for a car crash, but maybe I'm wrong. Anyway, Stargirl on the same Earth, since they both technically set on Earth 2, so we've done that. And who do you think the main villain of the Flash movie is? This is a difficult one, because a few months ago, Humberto Gonzalez, is it The Wrap? I can't remember. I think it's The Wrap. From The Wrap said that Reverse Flash is not the main villain. So that's interesting. I don't know if I believe him. I'm not sure about his insight. He was right about the Snyder Cut being released. He was one of the first to break the news. I remember that. And so you can take that to the bank. But I'm not sure. I would want the Reverse Flash would be the villain in terms of the early exchanges, fighting with the Justice League. I think that's how it is in the comics and in the animated movie. We may get that. I think the Reverse Flash will play a role, a huge, significant role. Whether or not he's the main villain, I don't think there is a main villain, Scott, in this movie. I think the villain of the movie is Barry having to put right what he's put wrong. I think that's the challenge. So I don't necessarily think. Now, in the proper Flashpoint, we know there's a kind of Flashpoint Wonder Woman, Flashpoint Aquaman are really evil and they're trying to take over the whole of Earth. But apparently they're not doing that because it's way too dark for the central DC universe. We won't have the bright colours and stuff. And that's the problem. You can imagine Zack Snyder doing a Flashpoint. Don't forget, Zack Snyder appointed a director for the Flash movie years ago, and that was going to be a Flashpoint movie. So Zack had his plans, but these people being in charge of this is absolutely worrying. So to answer your question, Scott, I don't think there's a central villain, but I do think Reverse Flash is as much of a villain in this film as anybody else. But we will have to wait and see. And finally today, this is a Screen Rant article by Andy, whose surname I can never pronounce. And this one's about the Flash TV show. Why the Flash keeps changing Barry and Iris's children. With Bart Allen set to join the Flash Season 7, this is another big change to the Iris West Allen and Barry Allen's children compared to the comics. The Flash is continuing to change Barry Allen and Iris West Allen's future family, with Bart Allen, aka Impulse, being the latest one to get reimagined from the comics. One of the biggest legacies in the entire DC universe is the mantle of the Flash, which multiple people have carried or become their own speedster heroes. Because of the time travel element of the comics, there are usually a number of speedsters from the past, present and future in the same environment. The CW adaptation of the Scarlet Speedster has toyed around with the concept of Barry being surrounded by other speedsters from the DC lore. But when it comes to Iris and Barry's children, that's where they take a departure from the source material, while still using recognisable Flash characters. When the Flash introduced their future daughter, the writers retooled her from Dawn Allen into Nora West Allen, being named after Barry's late mother. Nora also became an amalgamation of Dawn, as well as her cousin Jenny Ugnaz, who was the hero that went by XS in the comics. Originally, Dawn was the one half of the Tornado Twins with her brother Don Allen, who is actually Bart's father in the comics. Confused? Making Impulse Iris and Barry's grandson in the comics, Jordan Fisher will portray Impulse, but not as their grandson instead. Bart will now be their future son, who is set to make his Arrowverse debut in the 150th episode, which will air during the Flash Season 7. This is now the second time the CW series has changed Barry and Iris' children from the comics. So why is that? The Flash is currently in its 7th season and has an 8th one coming, as the CW gave then an early renewal at most. The show may last for at least another season or two depending on the long the creative team and network wants it on. With such a rich legacy the mythology has with all of the Flash's Arrowverse speedsters, it's understandable that creative freedom has to be applied to some of them. Creative freedom, that's rich coming from anything WB, right? In the case of Bart becoming Iris and Barry's future son, it's more so about logistically getting closer to Impulse as one of the more famous speedsters. If they kept Bart as the grandson, then the show would have to introduce his parents before getting to Impulse. That's a good point. In XS's case, naming their daughter after Barry's mom made a lot more sense from an emotional standpoint because of how this continuity has established the importance of Nora in the Flash's life. That's not actually a good justification because at the end of the day, the mother is important to Barry in the comics as well. And she wasn't named Nora. So that doesn't make sense, by the way. The Tornado Twins, from a comics perspective, have had a bit of convoluted history, and it might have just been easier for the TV show to restructure Bart and Nora's lineage. When it came to Nora, Eobard Thawne, aka Reverse Flash, alluded to the fact that in an alternate timeline, her name was Dawn. Abracadabra recently returned and told the Flash that one day Barry will become obsessed with the future. Whether or not Barry does that in a good or villainous way remains to be seen, at least for right now. But that could somehow be connected to Bart's coming arrival from the future. This is interesting. He's going to be obsessed with the future. I think I know what's going on here. Let's finish this article. At the end of the day, the way they're setting Impulse up allows Flash to get closer to the future legacy that Barry has in the comics. Changing Bart into their son also allows the TV adaptation to have more an intimate dynamic, while also giving Barry and Iris the gift of knowing that they'll still be parents one day. That's especially crucial for them to know after they had to see Nora literally vanish out of existence. In The Flash Season 5, even though a version of her does live in the future post-crisis on Infinite Earths, of course she does. We've got to fix everything, haven't we? We've got to be children, haven't we? Everything has to be happy-clappy. So while The Flash is continuing to change Barry Allen and Iris West Allen's kids in the Arrowverse, it ultimately does make for a better and more concise story. What, better than the comics? You're wrong. Anyway, what's going on here with Bart Allen? What do you think's going on here? There's a changing of the guard going on here. Don't you see it? I think they're replacing Barry Allen. I think they're replacing Barry Allen with... Jesus Christ, I'm getting on. You see, this is what happens, right? I was so cool there. I was going to tell you my hot take, right? Yeah, they're basically, what they're doing is they're replacing Barry Allen with Bart Allen. That's what they're doing. And so, as I say, it's interesting to me. I don't think it's a coincidence that on the 150th episode, Bart Allen arrives. And another thing, the whole thing about Barry being obsessed with the future, it's like maybe Grant Gustin is leaving the show. Maybe he said, I want to leave, and maybe they've decided they don't want to cancel the show. So what they're going to do is get Bart to replace Barry as the lead of the show. Do you get it? Barry becomes obsessed with the future, goes to the future, stays there unless he does cameos and stuff like that. I think this is what we're seeing here. I think Bart Allen is going to be the new lead of this show, either from episode 150th onwards, but probably from next season onwards. This would actually breathe new life into the show. Grant Gustin is a wonderful actor, but his maturity now, he doesn't look that fresh-faced kid, in the first few seasons of the show. Actually, I would be well behind and excited about this. And maybe Barry Allen, this version of Barry Allen, gets to do more DC Extended Universe stuff. I don't know what's going on, but I think this is what's going on. I mean, we'll have to wait and see, take pictures, take screenshots and see what happens. But I'm telling you right here and right now, Grant Gustin is leaving the Flash TV show. Barry Allen is being replaced by Bart Allen, a.k.a. Impulse. And this is why they hinted about Barry being obsessed with the future. But what do you think? Comment down below, like, share and subscribe. And I'll be back tomorrow with even more DCEU Daily. See you again soon.